Long before European ships appeared on the horizon carrying dreams of new lands and riches, America was already home to millions, a tapestry of civilizations woven across a vast and varied landscape. These were the Native Americans, a mosaic of distinct peoples, not a single monolithic entity, but a collection of many nations, each flourishing with unique languages, customs, and deeply ingrained cultures. From the Iroquois Confederacy in the east, a powerful alliance that shaped governance and diplomacy, skilled farmers who cultivated the land, and ingenious builders of impressive longhouses that sheltered entire communities, to the nomadic Lakota and Cheyenne of the Great Plains, fierce warriors and expert hunters who followed the rhythm of the bison herds, each tribe skillfully adapted to the challenges and opportunities presented by their specific environment, developing unique ways of life. In the arid Southwest, the ancestral Puebloans, also known as the Anasazi, engineered breathtaking cliff cities like Mesa Verde and intricate irrigation systems to coax life from the desert. Further south, the Aztec and Maya civilizations built powerful empires, magnificent pyramids, and sophisticated systems of mathematics and astronomy. And near the mighty Mississippi River, Cahokia was once a bustling metropolis, a city larger and more populous than London at the time, a testament to the ingenuity of its people. Today, its monumental mounds still stand as silent witnesses to a forgotten era, whispering tales of a vibrant past. These diverse peoples shared a deep spiritual connection to the land, viewing it not as a resource to be exploited, but as a living entity. Their profound stories, ancient wisdom, and time-honored traditions carefully passed down through generations through the power of oral tradition. America, before European contact, was a continent teeming with vibrant and remarkably diverse cultures, a rich tapestry of human experience, each nation with its own unique history, its own distinct identity, and its own deeply rooted place in the intricate web of life. But this world, so carefully balanced and richly textured, was on the precipice of irreversible change, about to be transformed forever by the arrival of newcomers from across the sea. In 1492, Columbus's voyage opened the door between two worlds, launching an era of exploration and conquest. European powers, Spain, France, England, rushed to claim land, seeking riches, converts, and empire. The English founded Jamestown in 1607, surviving only by growing tobacco, which fueled demand for land and labor. In New England, Pilgrims and Puritans sought religious freedom, building tight-knit, church-centered communities. 13 colonies grew along the Atlantic, each distinct, plantations in the south, merchant cities in the north, but all under British rule. Local governments and a spirit of self-reliance flourished. The forced labor of enslaved Africans became central to the Southern economy. Over time, colonists began to see themselves as something new Americans. Their shared experiences and growing independence set the stage for conflict. A unique American identity was taking shape. By the mid-1700s, a storm was brewing in the American colonies. Britain, burdened by debt from numerous wars, looked to its colonies to replenish its coffers. New taxes were imposed on the colonists, often without their consent or representation in the British Parliament. This sparked outrage. No taxation without representation became the rallying cry, encapsulating the colonists' frustration and their demand for a voice in the decisions that affected their lives. It was a simple phrase, but it carried the weight of colonial discontent. Protests escalated, from boycotts of British goods to organized demonstrations against royal officials. The colonists were finding their collective voice, and they were determined to be heard. Tensions reached a boiling point with events like the Boston Massacre, where British soldiers fired on a crowd of colonists, further inflaming anti-British sentiment. The Boston Tea Party, a bold act of defiance in which colonists dumped tea into Boston Harbor, became a symbol of colonial resistance. Harsh British reprisals intended to quell the unrest only served to unite the colonies in resistance. The spirit of defiance spread like wildfire from colony to colony. In 1775, the simmering tensions finally boiled over and open war erupted at Lexington and Concord, marking the beginning of the American Revolution. The Second Continental Congress, recognizing the need for a unified front, formed a Continental Army under the leadership of George Washington, a Virginian planter and military leader. On July 4, 1776, the Declaration of Independence, a document penned by Thomas Jefferson, proclaimed the colonies free from British rule, declaring that all men are created equal, endowed with certain unalienable rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The war was long and brutal, testing the resolve of the colonists and pushing them to their limits. But with crucial help from France, seeking to weaken its rival Britain, and key victories like Saratoga, the tide began to turn in favor of the Americans. In 1781, the British, under General Cornwallis, surrendered at Yorktown, effectively ending the major fighting of the war. The United States of America was born. An experiment in government by the people, a radical departure from the monarchies and empires that dominated the world. The ideals of liberty and equality, enshrined in the Declaration of Independence, would inspire and challenge generations to come as the nation grappled with its own imperfections and strived to live up to its founding principles. The revolution was not just a war for independence, but a radical new vision for society, one that promised greater freedom and opportunity for all, though the reality often fell short of the ideal. The world watched with a mixture of fascination and trepidation as a new nation emerged, challenging the old order and offering a new model for governance. The American story had only just begun, and the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead were as vast and uncharted as the American frontier itself. Independence brought new challenges. First, building a stable government with the Constitution and Bill of Rights. The young nation soon looked west, driven by Manifest Destiny and the Louisiana Purchase, doubling its size overnight. Pioneers streamed across the continent, displacing native nations through broken treaties and force. War with Mexico added vast new territories. But as America grew, so did its divisions, especially over slavery. The South's plantation economy depended on enslaved labor. The North, increasingly industrial, moved away from it. Each new state reignited fierce debates, free or slave. Compromises delayed conflict, but the question of slavery threatened to tear the nation apart. The seeds of civil war were sown in the soil of expansion. By the 1850s, the nation stood at a precipice. Decades of simmering tensions over slavery and states' rights had brought the country to the brink of collapse. The economic and social differences between the North and South deepened the divide, creating two distinct societies with vastly different visions for the future of America. In the North, the abolitionist movement gained momentum, fueled by moral outrage against the institution of slavery. Figures like Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman became powerful voices, advocating for the immediate emancipation of enslaved people. Meanwhile, in the South, the plantation economy relied heavily on enslaved labor, and defenders of slavery fiercely resisted any attempts to undermine their way of life. The election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860 proved to be the breaking point. Lincoln, a Republican who opposed the expansion of slavery, was seen as a direct threat to the Southern way of life. His victory triggered a chain of events that would plunge the nation into a devastating civil war. In the aftermath of Lincoln's election, 11 Southern states, fearing the demise of their cherished institution, made the momentous decision to secede from the Union, declaring their independence and forming the Confederate States of America. This act of defiance marked the beginning of a tragic chapter in American history. The simmering tensions finally boiled over when Confederate forces opened fire on Fort Sumter in Charleston, South Carolina, in April 1861. This act of aggression ignited the Civil War, a conflict that would test the very foundations of the American Republic. The Civil War plunged the country into its bloodiest conflict, pitting brother against brother and tearing families apart. Battles raged across the land, leaving a trail of destruction and devastation in their wake. The war became a crucible, testing the nation's commitment to its founding ideals. The Union, with its superior resources and industrial capacity, clashed with the Confederacy, which possessed a fierce determination to defend its way of life and boasted skilled military leadership in figures like Robert E. Lee. The war became a test of wills, a struggle for survival. A turning point in the war came with the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863. This landmark decree declared the freedom of enslaved people in Confederate territories, transforming the war into a struggle for human liberation and making ending slavery a central goal of the Union cause. After 4 long years of relentless fighting and the loss of over 600,000 lives, the nation was scarred and weary. The human cost of the war was immense, leaving countless families grieving and the country deeply divided. But in the end, the Union prevailed, preserving the nation and setting the stage for a new era. The Confederacy crumbled, and General Robert E. Lee surrendered to General Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse in April 1865, signaling the end of the war. With the war over, the nation turned its attention to the monumental task of Reconstruction. Slavery was officially abolished with the ratification of the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, forever altering the course of American history. The era of Reconstruction began, a period of profound social and political change. This ambitious undertaking aimed to rebuild the war-torn South and integrate millions of newly freed African Americans into the fabric of American society, granting them citizenship and the right to vote. However, the hopes for equality and racial harmony were met with bitter resistance from those who clung to the old ways. The Civil War had succeeded in preserving the Union, preventing the nation from fracturing into two separate entities. But the struggle for true justice and equality for all Americans was far from over. The legacy of slavery and racial prejudice continued to cast a long shadow over the nation. The scars of the Civil War, both physical and emotional, would continue to shape America for generations to come, influencing its politics, culture, and social landscape. The promise of freedom and equality for all enshrined in the nation's founding documents remained an unfinished project, a goal yet to be fully realized. As the nation moved forward, it faced a new era of unprecedented challenge and transformative change, grappling with the complex legacy of the Civil War and the ongoing struggle for a more just and equitable society. After the Civil War, America transformed. Factories, railroads, and inventions fueled the Gilded Age. Titans like Carnegie and Rockefeller built fortunes while millions labored in harsh conditions. Workers organized unions demanding better pay and safety, sparking fierce clashes. Cities exploded in size as immigrants arrived, over 20 million from Europe between 1880 and 1920. They passed through Ellis Island chasing opportunity and freedom, but faced poverty and discrimination. Ethnic neighborhoods flourished, adding new languages and traditions to American life. Despite hardship, immigrants and workers built the modern nation. The era's growth laid the foundation for a diverse, urban, industrial America. The United States was becoming a nation of cities and immigrants. The 20th century began with America as an industrial giant, but hesitant on the world stage. World War I changed that. U.S. entry helped tip the balance, and the nation emerged as a global power. The Roaring Twenties brought prosperity and change, but the 1929 stock market crash triggered the Great Depression. Millions lost jobs and homes, the Dust Bowl devastated farms. FDR's New Deal expanded government, creating jobs and a social safety net. As recovery began, World War II erupted. Pearl Harbor drew America into the fight, factories mobilized, and millions served. Victory in 1945, after dropping atomic bombs on Japan, ushered in the nuclear age. The U.S. stood atop a changed world, powerful, prosperous, and facing new responsibilities. The modern era had arrived. After World War II, the U.S. and Soviet Union became superpowers, locked in a Cold War of ideology and influence. The U.S. fought to contain communism, Korea, Vietnam, and a nuclear arms race. The space race peaked with the 1969 moon landing. At home, the civil rights movement challenged segregation and injustice. Leaders like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. led nonviolent protests, demanding equality. Landmark victories followed: Brown v. Board of Education, the Civil Rights Act, and the Voting Rights Act. The movement reshaped America, pushing it closer to its founding ideals. The Cold War and civil rights struggles defined a generation. America's promise was tested and expanded. The fight for justice and freedom continued. The Cold War's end left the U.S. as the world's sole superpower. The 1990s saw peace, prosperity, and a digital revolution. Computers and the internet reshaped life, but new threats emerged. The 9/11's attacks shocked the nation, leading to wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. The early 21st century brought economic crisis, political polarization, and the election of Barack Obama, the first black president. Social media transformed communication, while debates over inequality, justice, and climate intensified. The COVID-19 pandemic tested the nation's resilience, exposing deep divisions. America's story is one of constant change, struggle, progress, and reinvention. The journey to form a more perfect union continues.